people without adversity end up very uninteresting and probably pretty weak and a little bit depressed, because
No
the
doubt.
the ability to overcome stuff and build scar tissue is the best stuff of life. The hardest, the toughest, the most difficult, and then when you get over that, it's triumphant. It's beautiful. It's satisfying.
Yes.
You learn. And so I think what Jared is going through, and now it this so in this small way, as much as I like Sean McVay and all that, I am pulling for Jared Goff this weekend. I would like to see him take that additional step. Is that I'm allowed to do that now because I don't cover the NFL anymore.
Hey, before we go, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Out of my own curiosity. So obviously now that you're out of reporting on the sidelines for NBC, we've all as an audience learned more about you and your opinions, and you're free to share those. What I'm curious about is, and I can speak at this from my experience, although I never held my opinions. That wasn't my job. We had different jobs, and
Right.
and to their credit, ESPN said, "Will share your opinions," right?
Okay.
But Michele, every day I showed up to do my show, I said to myself, the audience isn't here to hear my political opinion. That's not why they tune in to the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio. Now, if it comes in the course of events of something that's happening in sports, okay. But they're here to talk about sports.
Yeah.
And so that was my moral compass. And you, respecting your job, didn't consider that my job on the sidelines is to tell you this conservative story or give you my point of view on something.
Right.
And to me, as much as anything, that's the disconnect, where so many people that hold opposite opinions of me, and maybe I'm curious if you feel the same way, but I've seen sideline reporters who clearly do feel differently than you because they do the job differently.
Yes.
It's that they did not differentiate between why I'm here and what the audience wants to hear and what I feel is important for me to say.
Right.
You had many things, I'm sure, that you felt important to say, but that's not why you were in that position, and that's not what you were supposed to do. And I feel like that was the disconnect. As much as, media is liberal, media is conservative, and it is.
Yes.
The actual individual talents as well couldn't separate why I'm here and what the audience wants to hear from me. And so some radio hosts would come on and be like, here's what I think about this quasi sports thing that's political, and thought that's what the audience should, I don't know, wants to, but they thought that's what the audience should hear from me today.
It gets back to what you said about the cool kids and their opinions versus the lesser cool kids and their opinions. What is the flavor of the day that people want to hear? That was never part of my calculus, ever. And when I did see it from other reporters, it made me uncomfortable. It made me go, that's not why you're there. You're not
Right.
there to tell us what to think. You're not there to tell us that we need to normalize this or this view or that view about whatever. That's not your job. Your job is to present the facts. I think that's why a lot of people were very surprised to learn some of my opinions, because I never, ever, ever outside of my group that I worked with, let those leak into what I did for a living.
Because you did your previous job correctly.
I tried to do it the right way, which was just to present the facts, ask the questions. You are not the story in that role. You are not the story. You're not it. Your opinions aren't the story. The story is the story. And so, yeah, I worked very hard at that, although wasn't that tough for me because I believed so fervently that the players, the game, the incidents on the side, whatever, those were the stories. I was just telling them. So, yeah, that was easy for me. And so, yeah, maybe that's why people have been surprised.
But they should be. That's my point. Like, I'm different because my points of view were out front. But like, do you think there's a lot, and I don't know what your break structure is, and you probably got to go here in just a minute here, and don't at me. But the audience should be surprised when somebody likes you begins to share their opinions and reveals they had a certain point of view, because, but they're not. My point is, the others that do your job, not only it wouldn't be a surprise if they ever let go of that job. We already know. Like, I can name the other sideline reporters, and I know exactly what their point of view is because they're using it in that job. And so what I'm curious about is, do you think there are a lot of other people like you out there in sports media
I wouldn't
And
say a lot, but they're there.
yeah,
They
right.
are there.
And do you think it's that they're, this is what I struggle with. See, Michelle, sometimes like, I was out kind of like, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I felt a little bit at times like a pioneer, like out on the frontiers. Like I'm taking a lot of arrows out front
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
And I would get notes from people and like, hey, appreciate you saying what I can't say.
Yeah.
And I would say, I wish you would say them so I wouldn't be alone. But I
Yeah.
have to also go,
No, I know.
but I also have to respect that's not their job. And so
Mhm.
what I'm getting at is, do you think people are hiding or they're respecting the nature of their job when they have opinions like you or me? But we never know. You and I
Uh,
don't know.
yeah, I think it's a combination. I think for the most part, though, it's probably I mean, there are a lot listen, there are so many good broadcasters who understand their role is to tell you about the game or the event that you're watching. But I've had some interesting notes come my way as well from people that I didn't know who
Exactly.
shared my point of view and I didn't know it. And someone I worked with long ago at another network said to me, wrote me a DM or something that said, the work you're doing now is the most important work you've ever done in your life. And the
Wow.
person who sent it to me, I was stunned because I wouldn't have expected that. So
Right.
that person did a very good job of keeping all of that to him or herself. And so I was, and then one time I got on an airplane, Will, and the flight attendant came and handed me a note, and it was from another flight attendant who said, "So happy to have you on board. So love what you're doing with yourself right now." And yeah, I almost started crying on the plane because it's like you said, wish the rest of you would join this sort of coalition of courage that we're trying to build here and help us tell these stories and spread this opinion. And you don't have to be alone in this. And honestly, that was the driver for me to leave, Will, because I couldn't say it in my other role. And I
Right.
needed to say it so badly. And I wanted to be part of this solution and be courageous for the people that don't want to talk and don't want to
Yeah.
say things. So, honest to God, I left that job voluntarily. I had given my notice 3 years before I even left, and it's this freedom to be authentic that was the driver.
It's freedom. So like, so I fight this instinct internally. Like I say, hey, I wish you wouldn't hide. But on the other hand, when I listen to your story, and I actually think it's really honorable that you never did let that out while you were in that role because you were respecting your job, the reason you
Absolutely.
were hired. And then therefore I look at those that do with the opposite point of view and I go, how little respect you have for your job and how much this is about the gratification of your own ego.
Yeah, and your audience, by the way, respect your audience. There was a great piece on OutKick yesterday about, hey, liberals, we hear you, but do you hear us?
Bobby
Sports.
Barack, really
Yes,
good. I read
Bob,
it. Yeah.
really good. And I posted it, so if you follow me on Twitter, go read it. It's excellent. But it's true. It's like they really do believe they have almost the moral standing to tell us how to think, and it sort of drives me crazy. But yes, I did my job as I saw the job needed to be done. And that had nothing to do with me, my story, my background, anything. It had everything to do
Right.
with the games and the people playing those games and coaching and all of that. So it was a great privilege. I considered it a privilege to do that, an earned privilege. I'm not going with, Johns Hopkins DEI people here. It was an earned privilege. I earned
Mhm.
that job. But yeah, it's I appreciate you bringing it up, Will. I really do.
Yeah, yeah. I follow my curiosity where it is, and I think you're endlessly fascinating, and you and I could trade stories and curiosities for a long time. So I thought, well, let's do it in part on air. But
And
no, I
then
really
let's do
like what you're doing, Michelle, and
thank
I'm
you.
glad to know you.
Right back at you, Will. And someone clip that I'm fascinating to know. I'm endlessly fascinating, please. And just like roll that again and again. And also send it to my husband and my kids because they don't agree.